I'm doing this for me, and that's enough. Like plain and simple, that is enough. What's going on, guys? Little more time has elapsed from video one to video two than originally planned. Had some stuff I was going to do, and I'm like, I'm going to tell this story, and that's going to help me get started. And things just didn't go as planned. Go figure. Life happens, the world turns, and here we are. So can't change it, but got to start somewhere. So we're starting now. Actually, pretty cool. This is the first time ever I've really come in with like 6 months of planning going on. I've got a handful of events I plan to hit. Some are things that I'm attending, and others are athletic events that I'm going to be competing in. And it's kind of nice to have a plan. I've always just kind of flown by the seat of my pants. Um, the other side of that, though, is that's one hell of an excuse, right? Well, I didn't get to train. I wasn't prepared all the way as I could have been. Um, I don't want that out. So my first event I'm going to be doing this year, I've got 4 months to prepare for. On May 6th, the St. Louis Scottish Highland game will be returning after a few years. My very first year that I ever threw, this was pre-amputation. It was the last game of the year that I threw, and I had an absolute blast. It was a really fun game. And then the game took a year off, and that turned into more than a year off. It's finally coming back. And when I saw that, I, for the first time in a little while, got really excited to throw again. I actually have not thrown since the Arnold last year. I didn't throw all summer. I wasn't really that excited about it. There wasn't, like I said, there was nothing that really got me going, and I was like, I'm not going to force it, so I didn't. So I can't wait. So I've got 4 full months to prepare, and I am putting a very. I'm not putting a little target on this one. I'm putting a real big goal that my plan is to go in this. So in the adaptive divisions, or like in the Highland Games, there are 9 events. I'm in an adaptive division. There are 8 world records. My plan is to break all 8 of those in the same day. I currently actually hold 3 of them, and I don't want to leave with all 8. I want to break all 8 in one day. That is the goal. I want to throw a game that can only ever be tied. Like you can only ever throw as good as, and that seems, it's fun, it's cool. It also feels very within reach. I've not been that far off of any of the record numbers. I just needed more practice and needed to get things tuned up, and this is giving me a reason to want to do that. So I'm really, again, I think I've already said it. I'm excited to throw this one, and it is going to be just really fun to take this on. So, like I said, I've got 4 months to get ready for this. I have a great base. My training is in a good spot right now. So I've got 3 basic tracks and things I need to take care of heading into this event. Again, one of the things I want is I don't want to leave any excuses. Oh, well, I had this issue, so that's why I didn't do it. I want to eliminate all of that. I want to truly see what happens and try to just optimize for one day. Something I actually don't really have a history doing. So the 3 paths, or the 3 kind of tracks that I have to take care of, is the first one is solely amputee related. I need to replace my sockets. As an amputee, there's a few different components of your leg, and the part that your residual limb goes into is called your socket. This is made of carbon fiber. Once it's made, it doesn't shrink, it doesn't do anything. That being said, I'm in a constant state of atrophy below my knee, and in what is remaining of that limb. So it's always shrinking, and at a certain point, the fit just becomes a little too big for the limb to be filled in with little fillers with the socks, and you just have to replace the socket, get a new one that fits the way it needs to. And I'm at that point anyway. So that's step number one, is I've got to get that socket taken care of. I'm well on my way with that path. A new socket is a 3-step process. I have finished up the first 2 steps, and I'm simply waiting for a phone call to tell me that the final product is done. When that happens, fantastic. I'm in a much better place to be training hard, to be doing all the things that I need to do without restriction, or I don't have to like pull back, because like right now with my training, I can't go full bore into it without risking some amount of skin damage or something like that. So so as you get into this sort of fit, it becomes a balancing act there. So that's step number one. Get the socket taken care of. Well on my way there. It's moving. We're rolling. That's not going to be an issue, or at least I'm doing everything I can. Number two, because why not go for some new stuff? I have never actively tried to put on a bunch of weight or tried to get heavy. In fact, I'm just over 190 pounds right now, maybe. And this is about as heavy as I've ever been in my whole life. My plan is to try to get to 205. I want to try and put on about 10 to 15 pounds as a way to prepare for this Highland game. And there's two different events where I'm throwing a 42-pound weight. It helps to have some size. There's no advantage. There's really no advantage to being lighter unless I gain this weight and I lose athleticism. I don't train it well. I'm not just going to eat a ton to try to gain a bunch of weight. Now I'm going to have to eat a ton, but the training has to come with it. I'm trying to get up to 205. Again, that's a dial that I've never really played with too much. I've never had a weight goal. I've never had a good reason for it. We're going to try something new. And the other piece of the puzzle, that should definitely give me some extra horsepower in the gas tank. What will come from me gaining that weight ideally should be, obviously with my training, I get stronger. And then as I'm training these throws, again, I've just got a better base to work with, especially missing a foot. It will help. That's step number two. Track number two, I'm trying to take care of. So I'm trying to put on some weight, get up to about 205 and see what happens there. Obviously, the second it becomes a hindrance to what I'm doing, we just pull the plug and like, okay, that's the heaviest weight Sam should be. That's fine. And then after that, I got to start throwing again, and that's real simple. But also in January, not the easiest thing. These are not throws that you can really practice outside of a handful of like shot put drills and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I'll be doing those. But it's really about it's being ready once I get weather to get outside and get throwing. I need to get a touch on all the events as soon as I can just to get a feel for where I'm at. With the training I've been doing since my last Highland game, it's actually, I believe, much better for what I've been than how I've trained for it in the past. I'm not getting rid of anything. But I've done a lot more with kettlebells and maces, and that has really changed my understanding, especially changed my understanding on my prosthetic on how to rotate and move through space, and which is what throwing is. So that's a piece of it. Is just getting out there and getting reps in. And then I will have the support of a two-time world champion in the Highland Games, and Matt Benson, who's offered me some help. He happens to live about 25 minutes from my house, and has said that yeah, let him know what he needs. And so I'm definitely not going to be turning that down. It's not just the throws; it's throwing a whole game and the game planning. And he's very good at understanding how to peak and all this sort of stuff, and how to use my throw training, which is not something I have any experience with until the last few years when I started throwing a little bit before my amputation. I learned a lot from my previous coach, Tom Soroka, learned a ton, helped me out. Like I said, it's not just about being good enough. It's also about having everything else in place. Like there's more to it than just trying to throw than just being good at the throws. It's knowing, again, it's knowing how, and then like I said, adding the extra weight so that maybe what used to be take 95% of everything I've got to maybe break that record. If I can get that down to like 90%, I can throw it 90%, and I can save a lot of energy that way and make sure that I have the gas tank and the back end. So these are the types of things that I'm really fortunate to have a guy like that in my corner with. So potential like roadblocks that may come into this one are things that I need to be cognizant of, but also just aware of that there will be things out of my control that will happen that will not contribute positively to this goal in 4 months. I just have to be ready to deal with it. It's gonna happen. My leg, I could have a malfunction on my leg and it breaks and it takes 3 weeks to fix it. Well, that's a big chunk of time in a 4 month window. As time's ticking, that stuff can hurt. Again, so rule number one is I have to be ready to roll with the punches. From there, it's making sure that I'm being ahead of my recovery. It's soft tissue work, it's chiropractic, it's the fire and ice, getting the sauna and cold going, and then just being very aware of what's happening inside of my socket. Again, this is the biggest thing that can happen in most amputee athletics is a skin issue happens inside the socket, and now it becomes make it worse or get out of it and let it heal, but you can't do anything while that's happening because maybe I'm on crutches. So being ahead of all this stuff, that's a multiple part thing. It's awareness, but it's also like the second something starts maybe is off, I have to get a hold of my prosthetist and be like, hey, we're going to need to make an adjustment here. This is something I have been historically, I've had a leg for just over 2 years. This is something that I've been really terrible about. I've just dealt with too much crap. It's not on my prosthetist. It's 100% on me. Not speaking up is like my limb shape is changing and that causing issues. So I have had these skin issues that I've lost a week of training. I've lost days of training over the last couple of years. So I have to be aware of that. And then from there, it's the other things are just going to be about being that heavy for the first time in my life. I know that 200 to 205 pounds isn't massive for my frame, but it is not little. I'm 5'11", maybe 6 foot, depending on who's measuring me. And I have to make sure that I'm staying on top of my mobility and continuing to be athletic and doing stuff like that. One of kind of the plans in place there is actually I'm actually getting ready to start jujitsu because I want to. I'm not going crazy with it, or at least not at first. Who knows? That's a sport that's never grabbed anyone. Um, but that's going to be a good way for me to kind of still maintain athleticism, move. And what I like about it the most is I'm having to move my body through space. I'm having to and I have to stay very aware of where my body is, what my body's doing. You can say the same thing about throwing. So we can get that carryover as I'm trying to gain this weight. I continue to work on, those just basic body movement and again, maintain and making sure that my weight gain does not become a hindrance to what I'm doing. Everything has to keep all the wheels moving the same direction. And if I let that slip, now that big piece of the goal that I believe is going to help me is now hurting me. And again, that is me not taking care of myself. Another thing that I really love about this challenge is I am really kind of taking on a challenge that no one cares about. Like I am well aware that if I break all 8 records in the same day, I still go to work on Monday. I'm not going to get some big check. Not going to get a bunch of sponsorships. I'm not like I don't see anything like that coming from it. This is for me. This is me setting a target that matters to me and that is valuable to me. And I really want to put a plan in place, execute, learn, adjust for the next one. I'm only going to get better at this. So understanding that no one cares is a really important piece of this one. So it's also important to keep that like no expectations. Like I'm doing this for me, and that's enough. Like plain and simple, that is enough. And like I said, it's really kind of fun to pick my own target. This is just me setting my target, going for my goal, and challenging my machine to do it. It's an extremely freeing thing to have happen, and I'm very excited about this again, and just I'm ready to go on this one. I'm really ready to, especially once I get get my leg replaced and I can train a little bit harder. And my plan is to kind of detail and kind of tell a little bit about what's going on as we go along. So I will absolutely be keeping things updated on getting that new leg, what I'm doing with training, how the weight gain's going, how the throwing's going, all these little things. I plan on just kind of telling that story over the course of the next 4 months, and then hopefully having one hell of a story to tell at the end of it, where ideally I accomplish this goal. And then if I don't, I at least I'll have something to take home and learn from that.